Meet Dave. Dave is 34. He has a normal job, a normal paycheck, and a normal amount of frustration with the amount of his money that disappears every April. Last year, Dave did the math on what he pays in federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and a couple of other line items he does not fully understand. And he landed on a simple, satisfying conclusion. He is done. This is the year Dave stops paying taxes. All of them. He files nothing. He pays nothing. He goes completely silent on the IRS. In his head, he is finally beating the system. He pictures himself on a beach somewhere, laughing about it. Now, what do you think actually happens to Dave? Most people assume one of two things. Either he gets away with it because the IRS is too slow and overwhelmed to notice one regular guy, or he immediately gets dragged out of his apartment in handcuffs. Both are wrong. What actually happens to Dave is slower, weirder, and way more expensive than either of those. And it does not look anything like what you have seen in movies. Let's walk through it. Here is the first thing to understand. The IRS is slow, not because they are incompetent, but because they are a massive government agency processing hundreds of millions of tax returns. Their system runs on a schedule, not on your feelings. Dave misses the April deadline. Nothing happens. Crickets. A week goes by. 2 weeks. A month. Dave starts to feel like maybe he actually pulled it off. He did not. About 3 to 4 weeks after the deadline, the IRS sends Dave his first love letter. It is called a CP-14 notice. It says, politely, "Hey, you owe us money. Here is the amount. Please pay within 21 days. This is also when the penalties start. And the penalties are where Dave's plan quietly begins to implode. There are 2 penalties running at the same time. The failure to file penalty is 5% of what you owe, every month up to a max of 25%. The failure to pay penalty is another 0.5% per month, also capped at 25%. On top of both of those, the IRS charges daily compounding interest on the whole balance, penalties included. So if Dave owed $10,000 originally, after just 5 months of ignoring the IRS, he now owes closer to $12,750. And that number keeps climbing every single day. Dave's plan was to keep his money. Dave is now paying extra for the privilege of pretending the IRS does not exist. Dave ignores the first letter, so the IRS sends another one. This one is called CP-501. It has a slightly firmer tone. He ignores that one too. Then comes CP-503. Now the tone is getting passive-aggressive. If paper could sigh, this letter would be sighing. Then comes CP-504. This is the one Dave should not be ignoring. It is called the Notice of Intent to Levy. Translation: we are about to start taking your stuff. At this point, if Dave owes over $10,000, the IRS files something called a tax lien. A lien is a public record that says the government has a legal claim on Dave's property. It shows up on his credit report. It makes it nearly impossible for him to get a loan, buy a house, or sell anything of value. In 2024 alone, the IRS filed about 197,000 of these lien notices. Dave is no longer a guy skipping his taxes. Dave is now publicly known, on paper, as a guy who owes the federal government money. And the fun is just starting. This is the part where Dave's theoretical victory turns into a real-world loss. After the final notice, the IRS has the legal right to collect what he owes. And unlike every other creditor in America, they do not need a judge's approval to do it. First move, wage garnishment. The IRS contacts Dave's employer and tells them to start sending a portion of his paycheck directly to the government. His employer legally has to comply. Dave shows up on payday and his paycheck is now a fraction of what it used to be. There is nothing he can do to stop it in the short term. And a note on his paycheck now informs everyone in payroll why his number just got smaller. Second move, bank levy. The IRS contacts Dave's bank and freezes his account. After a 21-day hold, the bank legally sends the money inside it directly to the IRS. Dave goes to buy groceries and his card gets declined. He opens his banking app and sees a balance of 0. In 2024, the IRS filed about 313,800 of these levy notices. This is not rare. Third move, asset seizure. If the debt is big enough and Dave keeps ignoring them, the IRS can seize his car. They can seize his boat. They can even go after his house, although a home seizure requires a judge to sign off. Oh, and if Dave's total debt crosses about $59,000, the State Department can revoke his passport. So the beach fantasy Dave had at the start of this video, he cannot even fly to it now. Let's talk about people who actually tried some version of this. Wesley Snipes, the guy who played Blade. From 1999 to 2004, he stopped filing taxes entirely. His defense was that he genuinely believed, based on bad advice, that he was not legally required to pay. He owed around $7 million. The judge was not impressed. He got 3 years in federal prison. Willie Nelson, the country music legend. Bad tax shelter advice from his accountants landed him with a $16.7 million IRS bill in the early 90s. The IRS seized almost everything he owned. He had to release an album literally called The IRS Tapes, Who'll Buy My Memories, specifically to pay them back. An entire album dedicated to his tax debt. You cannot make this up. Richard Hatch, the guy who won the first season of Survivor, took home $1 million on live television and then somehow decided the IRS would not notice. They noticed. He got 51 months in prison. Lauryn Hill owed about $1.8 million from 2005 to 2007. 3 months in federal prison. Al Capone, the most famous gangster in American history. The FBI could never prove the murders, the bootlegging, or the racketeering. You know what they got him on? Tax evasion. 11 years in prison. In 1931, this playbook has been working for almost a century. The common thread in all of these cases is not that they could not pay. They had the money. What got them in real trouble was that they deliberately and knowingly chose not to pay, which is the legal line that matters. Here is the part of this video that nobody explains up front. For most regular people, not paying your taxes does not actually land you in jail. The IRS treats it as a civil issue first. They want the money. Prison costs them money. It does not get them paid. So they grind you down with penalties, interest, liens, wage garnishments, and levies until either you pay or they have stripped everything worth taking. Jail only enters the picture when the government can prove you did it on purpose. That is a specific legal concept called willful tax evasion. Making a mistake is not a crime. Being broke is not a crime. Deliberately hiding income, lying on your return, or ignoring the IRS on purpose for years, that is a crime. In 2024, the IRS Criminal Investigation Program opened 2,667 investigations and got 1,571 convictions. Out of the hundreds of millions of tax returns filed, that is a tiny percentage. The odds of going to prison over taxes are genuinely small. But here is the trap. The odds of having your financial life quietly destroyed are much higher. Garnished wages, frozen bank accounts, a lien on your credit report for 7 years, interest that keeps compounding while you are not looking, a passport you cannot renew, the inability to get any kind of loan, years of your life spent untangling a problem you could have solved on day one with a payment plan. Dave does not go to prison. Dave just spends the next decade slowly watching everything he owns get absorbed by the federal government, one letter at a time. So what actually happens if you never pay your taxes? You probably do not go to jail. That part of the fantasy is mostly wrong. What happens instead is worse, in a way that is harder to see. The system is built to wear you down. Slow, legal, relentless. It does not need to arrest you. It just needs to outlast you. And it always does. If you actually cannot pay your taxes, the IRS has payment plans. They have hardship programs. They have an option called an offer in compromise. None of those options are available to Dave, because Dave decided to just not respond. Responding is free. Ignoring is expensive. Subscribe if this channel is making you understand the systems most people just hope never notice them. We will keep going.